Excellent. Session is being recorded. Welcome, folks. Welcome to this webinar entitled Stabilization. We're looking at stage 1 of stabilization. And this speaks about managing anxiety and risky stuff management. When you think about anxiety, look at that little image on the left there and all the stuff that anxiety can present to us. And as I was thinking about this, and when Stacy recommended this particular webinar, you know, as we usually want to think about, I know what I know. And yet as I've followed through and done my own research and reconnect with what I know, again, learning is finding out what I already know. This webinar is demonstrating that I know it, and teaching is reminding others that they know just as well as you do. I'd be surprised if there are people in the audience who've not thought about, studied, been exposed to the concept of anxiety, as well as people, places, and things being risky in relation to recovery. When we look at the stabilization stage of recovery, we're looking at the first stage of recovery. But I want you to expand your thinking a bit, because I really thought about this about 3:30, 4 o'clock this morning as I was thinking through this particular webinar. And clearly, a lot has changed in my head, but that's not going to impact what I'm going to share with you via this PowerPoint. And I encourage you, if you can, to get this PowerPoint, because in many ways, as we move through it, think about it in the context of information that will be valuable for you in order to, at some level, stabilize as well as manage your own stuff. Remember, the middle leg of the stool from Recovery Coach Academy says, discovering and managing my stuff. Be open to this concept as we move through this information. Another thing that I want you to be open to is the fact that as we look at anxiety, I find that stress, anxiety, worry, and fear seem to go hand in hand and hand in hand. And as much as I wanted to tease out stress and anxiety, again, you teach best what you most need to learn. And as I was learning what I wanted to teach, quotation marks around the word teach, it became real clear to me that I really had never really made that connection between the stress that I have experienced in living life on life's terms and the anxiety that stress presents. So as I walk through, but more importantly, as I walk away from this particular presentation, I have a clear concept or awareness of how I really want to help people to think about anxiety, stress, worry, as well as fear. When you think about anxiety, when you think about stress, when you think about worry, think about the environment in which we are living, working, and helping. I always call it a fear-based, anxiety-based, stress-based environment for various reasons. And if you look at that little box on the left, those are all concepts related to anxiety, stress, fear, as well as anxiety. We're going to look at this, and I want you to look at it with an open mind. The other part of this is that I've come to find that when I think about stabilization in the process of recovery, I also think about stabilization in the process of living life. I also think about stabilization in the process of building a life. Much of my focus more recently has been helping adolescents, my grandchildren in particular, through and helping them to build their lives. And there's no more time full of anxiety, worry, fear, dread, and the like is adolescence. So again, as parents, as coaches, as people making a humble effort to lend power to other people, be wide open to the prospect and the prospects that this work that we're going to do today, managing anxiety and risky stuff, has messages for all of us. As I move through, whatever thoughts you have, feel free to type them, and I'll make an effort to connect with them. But let's move on. before I move on, think about pause. And what pause and again, this isn't a concept that in my own recovery process I was introduced to. Pause is post-acute withdrawal symptoms, and we'll get a clear sense of what that is and how that is, and its application to this particular topic. I love these I wonder circles, because in wondering, I discover, I wonder, I think, I try, I observe, I record. I encourage you to wonder. I encourage you to be curious. And I encourage you to be open to the concept of how do I coach and support recoveries with the stabilization tasks of managing anxiety and avoiding risky places, situations, and people. Think about that. Wonder about that. Have awe about this as you become curious as we move through. And please feed your curiosity. Please feed it. I wonder. And this was the concept that came through my head after Stacy and I had made a decision on what we're going to share in this webinar for September. Just wanted to give you a picture of anxiety. I love images. I love images, and I love Googling images. And the images that I show are images that I share with recoveries. The other point that I didn't make up front is that this PowerPoint is one that I've already shared with a couple of people that I'm working with. One in recovery from a relationship with alcohol, and my grandson. And it's an effort to help him to think about this concept of anxiety, because he's already experienced it. He's a freshman in high school. His first year in high school, following his sister, who graduated from the same school and was a premier athlete. And he's going in wanting to look at baseball and track and football as opportunities for himself. And he's meeting a lot of anxiety in relation to that. So again, when you think about stabilization, I think there's a large potential for prevention as well as intervention in that stabilization stage. And keep a mind on that. So when you think about anxiety, the axis of anxiety can be running away, avoiding the situation, fidgeting, and trying to escape. It's an urge to escape or hide are the actions of anxiety. The body sensations that may occur relative to anxiety is to feel tense, experience a fast heartbeat, feel hot and sweaty, fast breathing, a tight chest, and sometimes feeling sick. It's an adrenaline response. It's a natural response of our bodies to the feeling of anxiety and the thinking about anxiety that says, I just can't cope. What if I'm in danger? Something terrible is going to happen. And again, these are the opportunities to observe the body sensations of a recovery or an adolescent and to identify their reactions in relation to what might be anxiety and many times is experienced or verbalized as stress. But the key component here is there's an urge to escape or hide, and there's a response. Let's bring it back to the context of who I am today. I'm a person in long-term recovery. Folks, it's been over 40 years that I've been recovering from my relationship with alcohol. Equally as important, recovery from the stress that my environment and my life presented me over time. 40 years in that process. And whereas I thought I have made significant progress, over about a year and a half ago, I experienced heart failure. I'm currently being treated for heart failure. I had an assist device implanted in me about a year ago. It'll be a year October 1st. And over time, I find myself reconnecting with the acceptance and the strategies that have steadied me well as I've made an honest effort to live life with heart failure. I don't call it a recovery process because in many ways it's more of an opportunity to heal and strengthen myself as I wait for a heart. I wait for a human heart. I'm on the list. But I mentioned that because there's been lots of anxiety related to this. You know, there's been times when I felt that I couldn't cope. There have been times that I thought about what if this device stops. not necessarily me, but the people who care about me, has been concerned and implanted thoughts in my own being about something terrible might happen. And the body sensations have been experienced. The actions, I haven't tried to run away. I've accepted the situation. There's some fidgeting at points in time as a result of trying to connect what I need to connect to improve the quality of my life. And yet, anxiety has been a part of that. And yet, the stress of my ongoing progress and my ongoing strengthening myself, but more importantly, my ongoing acceptance has been a mode of anxiety. So I just want to help you to connect some dots, because there's lots of ways to experience and enhance our awareness of and utilize the concepts that we're going to be looking at today. Again, I just wanted to, and again, these are all images and information that I share with recoverees and people that I'm making a humble effort to help, my grandchildren included. So when we think about anxiety, presents itself in many different ways. It's an opportunity for people to think about what they may be going through. Anxiety presents itself in a way of desiring to control people and events. Anxiety presents itself in difficulty in getting to sleep. It presents itself in feeling agitated or angry. It presents itself as defiance and other challenging behaviors. Isn't that adolescence? It presents itself as having high expectations for self, including schoolwork, sports, and the like. It presents itself as avoiding activities or events. It presents itself as pain, like stomach aches and headaches. It presents itself in struggling to pay attention and focus. It presents itself as intolerance or uncertainty. It presents itself as crying and difficulty managing emotions. It presents itself as over-planning situations or events. And it presents itself feeling worried about situations or events. It feels worrying about people, places, and things. Anxiety presents itself in many different ways. And again, these are things that we may have seen or heard before, but this offers yourself as well as your effort to help others to connect some dots around information and helping them to see that, yeah, you know, what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what my body is responding is anxiety. Peanuts cartoon. My anxieties have anxieties. Been there. Been there, been there. I like this quote by Mr. Spurgeon. Our anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows, but only empties today of its strengths. For me, this is a key awareness that helps us to appreciate the importance of managing anxiety, the importance of in the moment, in the here and now, addressing the anxiety. Anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows and its problems. It only empties today of its strengths. As anxious as I may be today is not going to improve the quality of that anxiety tomorrow. But my ability to focus on what's going on today is my ability to tap into my strengths and my supports in order to manage the anxiety in the moment. I can remember my own recovery process, people hammering into my head, be here now. And also the concept of what I worried about, 95 to 98% of it would not occur. And that was an opportunity for me at some level to lessen, manage, or let go of the anxiety. The learning objectives for this course, and again in my head they've changed, but let's see what we've got, is to identify recovery coach roles and opportunities to support recoveries in anxiety, risky management, and pause management. We'll get at what pause is in a few minutes. It's an opportunity to identify, this is pause, post-acute withdrawal symptoms as a means of supporting recoveries and learning how to manage anxiety as a stabilization activity. Again, I had a lot of psychoeducational experiences and opportunities in the 40 or 50 hospitalizations that I had, most particularly at Connecticut Valley Hospital in Middletown, Connecticut, between over the 7 or 8 years that I was engaged in a revolving door of 40 or 50 hospitalizations through that institution. For me, those psychoeducational experiences and opportunities and classes were very powerful in my learning about my addictions, as well as the potentials of abstaining from those addictions and the relationship that I was having with alcohol. Again, in preparation for this particular webinar, I do a lot of psychoeducational work with recoveries and with individuals that I make a humble effort to lend power to and to help. I think there's a knowledge is power. I think a part of my role as a recovery coach is to educate people relative to what's going on. Again, if a person doesn't know what they don't know, it's very difficult for them to deal with the issues that they need to deal with. So this concept of post-acute withdrawal syndrome is a concept that, again, I'm just making a connection with, and yet already has become a powerful piece of my sharing with people that I'm making an effort to help. The final learning objective is to build capacity to educate recoveries and developing anxiety management skills and strategies to address staying away from risky stuff. It's interesting, and as we move through this webinar, appreciate the fact that as we developed anxiety management skills and strategies, many of those skills and strategies suggest and support recoveries hanging out with people who support them, understand what they're going through, and are willing to help them. It's much like what's offered in recovery community centers. It's much like what's offered in recovery-oriented systems of care. It's providing the care that people need, both a service as well as the attitude of care, to help them to engage in relationships and to engage in what I call circles of recovery that support their ability to connect with helpful and powerful relationships, which I think circumvents hanging out with risky people, places, and things. So what is post-acute withdrawal syndrome? Again, this is a concept that I may have seen somewhere, but it really hit me between the eyeballs as I was researching this particular webinar. Let me share with you what I've learned. And what I'm sharing with you is what resonates with me. I encourage you to Google this concept. I encourage you to continue to grow and understand in this concept if you haven't already. But again, it's a new term to me. And folks, I've been in recovery for over 40 years, and as I said earlier, I have engaged in as well as practice offering psychoeducational information to others, and this is one that I've not shared, but I intend to from this day forward. Following detox can take 6 to 4 months for the human brain to fully adjust to no longer having drugs or alcohol present in their body. Clearly, I had 40 or 50 hospitalizations, and all of those had a detox up front. So when I would leave hospitalizations, whether it was be a 3-day hospitalization, a 7-day hospitalization, or 2.5-month hospitalization, I had been detoxed. And I don't remember being warned or advised of this concept of 6 to 24 months for my brain and my body to adjust to no longer having alcohol in it. So in many ways, in leaving a detox, my body continued to be stressed by the prospect of living without alcohol. No wonder it was so easy to reconnect with alcohol after many of those hospitalizations, because my body still desired it and craved it, but more importantly, it continued to be a way that I managed stress, because I had not clearly learned how to do that, given the nature of the impending stress that I felt as a result of my body not having adjusted to the lack of alcohol. Post-acute withdrawal syndrome refers to the lingering mental and physical symptoms of addiction that can persist long after the acute or severe withdrawal symptoms have worn off. I had delirium tremens, IEDTs, I would lose weight, I could not sleep before going into, for detoxes. That was the main reason I would go for detoxes. And appreciate the fact, folks, that I never chose to go into a hospitalization because I asked to. People saw me suffering. People saw my life becoming more and more unmanageable, so they made me go. However, I had some very acute and severe withdrawal symptoms whenever I did not pick up a drink one day at a time. And in many ways now I'm appreciating that these acute withdrawal symptoms had a real pre-piece to them. The pre-acute withdrawal symptoms, and I thought about that this morning as I was thinking about this particular piece, was the stress and the pressure, the feelings of anxiety and the fears that I lived with even before I picked up a drink. Even before I began to try that outer reach for inner security that alcohol offered me. For me, in many ways, I thought about this morning that alcohol not only offered me an outer reach for inner security, it also offered me what I perceived to be an outer reach for inner serenity. I looked for peace, serenity from the pressures and the stress of daily living, even before picking up that first drink. The pressures and stressors of trying to make it in a hostile environment that didn't necessarily accept me for the color of my skin, or the educational opportunities that my mother so much wanted me to address and to embrace and enhance, and the shame and the guilt that I felt throughout the course of my even before I picked up a drink. So there were some pre-acute withdrawal issues that were going on that when I picked up that drink at the age of 19 years old, put me in a position to really make an honest effort to allow alcohol to be a medicine, to be that outer reach for inner security and an outer reach for inner serenity. And that was mental and physical symptoms that were present even before I picked up that welcome drink of Bacardi Light Rum and Coke. Symptoms of post-withdrawal syndrome are the inability to think clearly, memory problems, overreacting emotionally, numbness, sleep disturbances, a sensitivity to stress, concentration problems, abstract thinking problems, circular thinking, nightmares, terrors, difficulty falling asleep, an inability to communicate oneself and one's needs, difficulty staying asleep, changes in sleep patterns, dizziness, physical coordination problems, balance problems, sluggish reflexes, impaired eye-hand coordination, panic attacks, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, depression, feelings of guilt, obsessive-compulsive disorders, and the ability to relate to other people. My favorite definition of addiction is a love-trust relationship with an object or event that changes one's mood, and that came as a result of the inability to relate to other people for various reasons. I expanded on some of these symptoms, and again, folks, this webinar, this PowerPoint, has a valuable opportunity to psychoeducationally offer people that you're making an effort to help information about what might be going on with them so that they can better understand that help is possible and hope is possible. Emotional sensitivity involves things like anxiety, irritability, etc. Sensitivity stress is the emotional roller coaster of the other pause symptoms that make a person more easily triggered by stress, which can lead to extreme addictions. Again, pre-relationship with alcohol, I was very sensitive to the stress that put me on an emotional roller coaster that already was presenting some of these symptoms that I felt the need to medicate as a result of that outer reach for inner security and inner serenity that alcohol offered me. The importance of pause, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, are early recoveries may get caught off guard by pause because their thinking might be, okay, I went to rehab, I should be better now. Been there at least 40 or 50 times. I went to rehab, I went through the program, how come I am not better? How come I am not feeling better about myself, about my ability to manage the stressors and the pressures of life? Again, folks, the impatience of wanting to feel better, the impatience of wanting to improve the quality of life also gets mixed in this concept and this perception and this belief system. When problems return, and when I talk about problems, the stressors and the pressures that don't go away because I went to detox, it's easy to begin to think, well, maybe there's more stuff wrong with me. And maybe sobriety is not possible for me. Been there, done that 40 or 50 times. So again, you can see the importance of pause is the ability to begin to think about the fact that, gosh, it's going to take 6 months to maybe more than 2 years to really mentally and physically and emotionally overcome many of the problems of living and the issues and the responses to those problems of living that occurred before these hospitalizations and these detoxes and these efforts to change and improve the quality of my life. Think about that happening again and again and again. It became very easy for me to think that I was hopeless, helpless, and powerless relative to sobriety, as it was called back then, and recovery, as I talk about it today. The importance of pause is this thinking can easily lead to reconnections to risky stuff, risky people, places, routines, and rituals. The risky stuff for me was the ongoing isolation. The risky stuff for me was as a result of my fear of not being valuable or my shame and guilt of not doing and being what people have expectations for me to do and be. I returned to the people that at least embraced me during the course of my relationship with alcohol. And those people were in places. The routines and rituals that were suggested to me were very difficult to put into practice. For example, when I left treatment, there was a suggestion that I go to 12-step recovery programs. And I made efforts to do that on many occasions, but also found that there was some racism, there was some disconnection between me and the people in the rooms at that point that again fed my shame more than it fed my sense that I was accepted and acceptable. And that's a part of the my racial identity issues that again that weren't addressed in my treatment experiences, even though we were beginning to look at cultural competence models in the latter part of my treatment opportunities. So that's why it's important, this concept of, thinking that's easily leading back to reconnections with risky stuff. That's why it's important to help recoveries, and ourselves included. You teach best what you most need to learn, folks. Some of what we're going to see that's important to help recoveries to do and be, it also may be important for you in your own discovery and managing of your stuff. I know it's certainly been impactful on mine, even though I'm 40 years into this process. It's important to understand that pause is normal and temporary. And it's important to know how to recognize and manage the symptoms of pause with the support of caring therapists and counselors, which is not a recovery coach's lane. The ability, the support of caring therapists and counselors to help people to manage the symptoms of pause. We as recovery coaches can help people to recognize and be aware of the symptoms of pause, but stay in your lane. Our lane is not to manage or treat these symptoms. We're not doctors or therapists or counselors. So the reminder is for recovery coaches regarding diagnosis or treating pause is stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. So how do we manage these pause symptoms and stay in our lane at the same time? It's expecting and being able to provide honest and humble work and effort on our part, as well as on the part of the recoverees. Honesty means being open, telling the truth without blaming or judging myself or the recovery. The humility of the work is being teachable, being open to learning what power the recovery needs, what power I need to continue to develop my own life. A key part of my humility is to be teachable, to be reachable, and to be committed to learning. Folks, again, I'm 40 years in my process. I'm a good 37 or 38 years in my process of helping others. And I'm still learning how to do this work. I'm still learning how to be helpful in this work. The other part to how to manage the pause symptom is the open-mindedness on the part of the recovery as well as myself. And the willingness to learn and act on that learning on the part of the recovery and on the part of myself. I do a piece called DART. And DART has taken a lot of different acronym over the years. But the first 3 lines of DART, which is a humble effort to learn power. DART is honest work and effort, open your mind, and willing to learn. That's the basis of the work that I do. How to manage pause symptoms. Provide a circle of support. People around the recovery who support and guide the recovery. Again, think about that concept in the context of recovery community centers, in the context of recovery-oriented systems of care. You know, again, if we're going to break the patterns of isolation, as well as help people to avoid or stay away from risky people, places, and things, let's offer them a circle of support. And let's encourage them to engage in a circle of support, which helps people to break through those patterns that have been difficult for them. Another way to manage pause symptoms is helping people to have healthy expectations and ourselves having healthy expectations about the process and the progress of a recovery. It's about the recovery, it's not about me. It's about the recovery identifying potentially through their support network multiple pathways of their own recovery process. Healthy expectations speaks to the recovery's personal way of dealing with what's going on. Their pathway. Healthy activities are another part of helping recoveries as well as ourselves to manage the pause symptoms. Healthy activities include routines and rituals the recovery can do to manage their symptoms and deal with their triggers. And again, it's about the recovery. It's not about me. It's a self-directed process, which is one of the components of working through recovery. A circle of support. What is that? It's encouraging recoveries to surround themselves and engage themselves with trusted people who might include therapists, counselors, peer mentors, recovery coaches, sober friends, clergy, family members, etc. Recovery Capital stuff. It's a circle of support seeking to improve the quality of the recovery. As a result of this circle of support, the recovery can work on their own personal and internal recovery capital needs. The circle of support. The most important qualities for recovery to look for and support are people who, and again, folks, this is information that I find valuable in sharing with recovery so they know what they need to know in order to be a part of their own process and to direct this process in a way that offers them their best opportunity to improve the quality of their life as well as their well-being. The most important qualities to look for and support are people who have compassion and respect for the recovery and their situation. It's important that the recovery avoid people who judge, criticize, or downplay the recovery's concerns. It's about our ability to help the recovery to tell their truth and not feel that they are blamed or judged in the process of telling their truth. Welcome, Ariel. The important qualities for people who are in support are people who are good listeners, who are active listeners, are compassionate listeners, are curious listeners, who give solid feedback and advice based on what has heart and meaning for the recovery. Not me, but the recovery. What has heart and meaning for the recovery is what caretakers offer. What has heart and meaning for the recovery is the prospect of their ability and their willingness to take care of themselves. And the circle of support and the important qualities for people who genuinely care about a recovery's well-being and support them in achieving their goals. That genuinely caring speaks to the duality of care. Care is both a service or an action that we provide, as well as an attitude that the recovery experiences in their relationship with a helper. And the circle of support should understand addiction and recovery, at least to some degree. A circle of support, which is critical to helping recoveries to manage pause. Circle support, when a recovery experiences pause post-acute withdrawal symptoms, we encourage them to reach out to people in their circle of support to talk about what they're experiencing, sharing their feelings and concerns about addiction recovery. That's clearly a role of recovery coach. Verify the accuracy of how they're viewing a particular situation that is upsetting them. Motivational interviewing can be helpful here. Do they think they're over or underreacting? Ask them for a reality check, which I think is very much a role of recovery coach, as well as their ongoing relationship with counselors and therapists. And analyze the situation that led to the pause symptoms and create a plan for dealing with these symptoms or particular circumstances in the future for appropriately qualifying members of their circle of support. Again, I think this is more in the realm of therapists and counselors, but we can certainly encourage and advise and refer recoveries to find those opportunities to truly analyze what led to their symptoms and helping them to develop a plan for dealing with those symptoms that we as recovery coaches can clearly support and lend the prospects of recovery capital to that enterprise. Healthy expectations, another way to help recoveries to manage their pause symptoms. Encourage recoveries to refer from panicking when pause symptoms occur. Again, the anxiety is already there, and to panic and then anxiety can truly set up a recovery to relapse, whether it be with the substance or the people, places, and things that enhance the ability to use that substance. Let recoveries know that the symptoms will be around for a few days and then disappear as quickly as they come if they just take it one day at a time and continue to stay connected with their circle of support. Suggestions to support recovery and making adjustments in their lives as needed to ride out this temporary period, and encourage recoveries to call upon their support people to help them weather the storm. In particular, they're connecting as needed with counselors and therapists who can make more focused interventions. Healthy expectations. Support the recovery in practicing acceptance of the situation and of themselves in that situation. Acceptance is the answer to all their problems, but also that acceptance is also in relation to accepting help, letting help help. Sometimes that's a very powerful resource that we can offer recoveries as recovery coaches. Let help help. You've got this circle of support that offers you lots of ways to manage and deal with what you're going through. Let them help. Let me help. How can I help you with your recovery today, given the nature of the pause symptoms that you're experiencing? Emphasize that harboring resentment about the situation may cause the recovery to focus on how bad the situation is and create further upset, further panic, further anxiety, which could lead to poor decisions and poor connections. Offer the recovery the opportunity to feel and share what they are feeling, and then let the feelings pass on. Again, active listening, but also helping the recovery to follow through on what they're experiencing and follow through on the support that they have in their professional contacts with therapists and counselors. A way of staying in my lane. Healthy expectations. Encourage recoveries to embrace living in the moment and being flexible as they live in the moment and enjoying the good days. Sometimes the recovery will come and say, there's no joy in my life. Are you letting joy happen? Are you embracing the joy? Or are you constantly focused on the shoe to drop that's going to take it all away from you? On bad or more difficult days, and bad has quotation marks around it, support recoveries in adjusting their plans to accommodate what they're going through while not holding themselves to unrealistic expectations. Again, if they're going through something, it's important that they appreciate what they're going through, focus on what they're going through, do the best that they can to change the things that they can, but also appreciate the things that they can't change and address them. These healthy expectations, this is a nice image that helps, I think, recoveries to think about what they can manage and what they can control and what they can take care of. Things I can control are my words, my actions, my ideas, my play, my effort, my mistakes, my behavior in response to what's going on. Things that are outside of my control are other people's reactions or actions, other people's mistakes, other people's feelings, other people's ideas, other people's play, and other people's words related to what I'm going through, most particularly of other people's behaviors. I can't control, but only thing I can control is me. So many times when we're in that fear and we're in that anxiety, I've clearly found that fear produces an effort to control. And even with people who care very much about us, if they're afraid for us, be aware that they may try to take more control of our situations than they can. So appreciate things I can control and things that I can't control. One of the ways I remind recoveries of this is when they think about the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the people, places, and things that I can't control. Suggest that the recovery through healthy expectations be gentle with their self while they're going through the pause symptoms. Practice self-care both physically and psychologically as they're going through the pause symptoms. Make sure that they're getting plenty of sleep, eating nutritiously, have healthy ways to relax, and aren't working too much. Help recoveries to do the best they can with whatever they're dealing with in the moment while accepting that that is enough. So many times the remnants or the focus that shame, shame binds us all at many points in life. And in many ways, helping them to appreciate that this shame puts a person in a position or belief system that they're not good enough. And particularly when pause symptoms abound, there's a sense that I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'm not good enough to recover. Know that their capabilities will fluctuate during this period, and that's okay. Help recoveries to know that their abilities and their capabilities will fluctuate during this period, and it's important that they appreciate that that's okay, as long as they don't quit on themselves. Healthy expectations are encouraging recoveries to help their plans, keep their plans modest, not overwhelm themselves with doing and being too much. Reminding recoveries to expect this period to last for up to 2 years and to be aware that they will need days off to avoid their stress and to avoid their stress. Help them not to get too ambitious with their goals and with their expectations of themselves and their ability to meet their goals, especially when pause symptoms abound. If the recovery questions what counts as too ambitious, suggest that they discuss this with someone from their support circle who has experience with addiction recovery to help them to set realistic expectations. Clearly, as a peer recovery helper, as a person who has lived experience, we can help recoveries to look at
what it means to be too ambitious. We can help them we can relate to them in ways that other people in their support circle may not be able to. Healthy expectation speaks about responsibility. It is recovery's responsibility. This is their responsibility. Their words, their behavior, their actions, their efforts, their mistakes, their ideas, and the consequences of their actions. This is helping recoveries to appreciate what it means to be able to respond, what their responsibility in this process, what their healthy expectations are in this process. It is not a recovery's responsibility what other people's actions are, what other people's ideas are, what other people's fears are, what other people's fears and efforts to control in those fears are, what other people's consequences of their actions are, what other people's beliefs are, what other people's mistakes are, what other people's words are. It's enough to manage one's own life, appreciate what one's ability to respond is, which means what one's responsibility is in the process of recovering, especially in the face of pause symptoms or enticements to connect with risky people, places, and things, or helping people to grow and learn. Healthy expectations support the recovery in refraining from overanalyzing and overthinking. Encourage and help the recovery to look for things that trigger the return of a pause episode, yet not worrying if they can't identify the cause. Sometimes there's a clear trigger and sometimes there isn't. We're not going to ruminate or worry about that. There's already too much worry. If I know what the episode has been triggered by, fine and good. If not, fine and good. Encourage the recovery to practice patience with their process by being open and not attached to the outcome. Be open and not attached to the outcome is the way to wisdom. It's the way to learning what we need to learn in order to overcome the challenges and the struggles with life on life's terms. Healthy activities. Discuss and educate the recovery to find and develop healthy physical outlets for their feelings. This often includes activities such as exercise, yoga, sports, etc. Even quotation marks, bad feelings like sadness and anger can be safe to experience when recovery has an acceptable and responsible way to challenge and relieve these feelings so that they can move on from these feelings. I have found that in the course of my own process, helping other people helped me to relieve some of the anger and the sadness and the hopelessness. Healthy activities include supporting recoveries and preparing go-to ways of relaxing and alleviating their boredom. Stress and boredom are often two of the major threats that can lead to relapse or engaging with risky people, places, routines, and rituals, especially in the conversations that I'm having with my grandchildren. Boredom and stress can lead to unhealthy behaviors and connections. Help the recovery to explore and identify a variety of things that they can do, activities that they truly enjoy. Whenever things start to get overwhelming, or if they think about reconnecting with risky stuff. Stress management, risk management, anxiety management involves healthy activities such as those identified here. Going to the spa, exercising, finding a hobby that interests you, meditation, yoga, nature, managing one's time well, music, therapy, and connecting with people in recovery community centers, enhancing one's recovery capital, taking advantage of the circle of care, and allowing people to know how they can help you with your recovery on any day. Boom. That's me. Any questions or thoughts or comments on what we've done over the last 55 minutes or so? Again, thank you for your attendance. Thank you for being here. For me, I hope this helps. For me, I hope that you will take this information, and again, by having being able to enroll in these webinars, you can walk away with this PowerPoint. And folks, again, I am being clearly and absolutely honest with you. This is information that we want to continue to look at for ourselves so that we can make sure that our ability to discover and manage our own stuff is intact, as well as sharing with people that we care for and care about. My grandchildren, my family, my friends. Thank you all. Again, thank you. Thank you for making the connection with us. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to take advantage of this opportunity through CCAR to enhance the quality of the work, the valuable work that you all are doing in your communities. And clearly, I just feel honored with being able to share this and to continue to learn and grow through this opportunity that I have to share what I'm learning. And I hope you get a sense of this is an ongoing process, folks. And I've been 40 years engaged in my own recovery. Thank you, Stacy. Thanks, Michael.